Hello, Year 8. It's Miss Bishop here again. Um, this is the second time for me recording this. I made an amazing lesson, cracked loads of jokes, explained everything really well, and there wasn't any sound. So, uh, this is round two. So I hope that I'm not just talking to myself again for the next 25 minutes, but here we go. So what I want you to do, we're going to be looking at who Linda Brown was and how she fixed segregation in education. So what I want you to do, in history you have to look at sources, and in your exams, and be able to take things from them. What were they trying to get across? What point was trying to be made? This, that, and the other. So what I want you to do is have a look at source A, which is on the left, and source B, which is on the right. Okay, so have a look at those for me. What do you think they're trying to show? They're obviously both a school setting. You know, we're looking at education today. So they're obviously both showing the same type of thing, but what are the differences? And maybe what are some similarities as well? Okay, so pause the screen, have a little think, and then I'll go through some of the answers. Okay, so what we've got here is we've both got two kind of school settings. Now, neither of them look familiar to us because in America they have like a different kind of classroom layout to what we do, where generally students might have separate desks, whereas over here we tend to have more kind of grouped together tables. But you can see quite clearly in source B on the right here that it is a traditional kind of classroom in the sense that each child has got their own space to work. They've got their own equipment, their own books. Each child is spaced out evenly. They can all have access to the board and to the teacher at the front and what they're trying to say. And if you have a look at source A on the left here, you can see that this classroom is a lot more crowded. Okay, there's 10 times more students being crammed into this room. You can see a teacher over here. And you can see that you've got children here that, you know, one looks like it's sitting on the other one's lap. You've got three here that don't even look like they've got a desk in front of them. You can see a girl here who hasn't got any access to any desk or any writing equipment. So you can see that they're both schools, but they are different settings. Now, this source B is a white school, okay, in the 50s. So this is what white children's classrooms would have looked like. Whereas here, source A is a coloured school for black children and any other ethnic minorities in America at the time, Asians, Mexicans, Native Americans. This is what they would have had for school. Now, that's not fair. Every child should be created equally, should be educated equally. So we're going to have a look at that today. We're going to look at Linda Brown and how she put education and the ability to be able to mix children to have the same level of education in America and how she succeeded. Okay, so have a look through these. Oh, excuse me. These are what we're going to be the learning outcomes for today. So we're going to look at what the USA school segregation system looked like in the middle of the last century. Why? Because we're going to see how schoolgirl Linda Brown and her family try to fix this issue by taking the school system to court and looking at her campaigning for equal rights, or her family's campaigning for equal rights in education for school children. So, we looked at segregation last lesson with Jim Crow laws, and I just wanted to go through and just double check that you know what they mean. So we've got here two key words or two key phrases: segregation and civil rights movement. What I want you to do is have a little think, come up with your own definition, and then we will go through and I will put up the main definition for you. Please have a go at doing your own definition because practice makes perfect. Yeah. Practice makes perfect. If you mess it up, how are you going to know if you've messed it up if you've never had a go? So pause the screen here, write out your own definition, and then I will put up the correct definition in a second. Also, if you fancy, have a look at the extension. Can you think of any examples today where people are segregated? So where in the world are people segregated? So what we've got here is a definition for segregation. So segregation is separating people because of their race, religion, or culture. In another sense, it could be if you had a packet of M&Ms. I always take out the orange ones. I don't know why. They taste different to me and I don't like it. It's the same with orange Smarties. I don't really like the look of orange things. And I give them to somebody else, like my dad or my sister, whoever. So that's me segregating out my chocolate. So that's what it means. If you are separating things out, maybe you like to eat your food separately on a plate, you don't like your food touching, that's you segregating the food on your plate. So it's about separating things, but in this case, it's separating people. Okay, so separating people because of their race, religion, and culture. And the civil rights movement was the struggle by African Americans to achieve social and political equality with white Americans. So that means that they were fighting to be treated the same as white Americans. So they are allowed to vote in the same way, have the same level of education, have the same job prospects, be able to apply for the same jobs, be able to marry whoever they want, be able to join the army and rise up through the ranks and not just be based in like the kitchens or cleaners, to be able to live as equals, which is it's crazy that people back then just weren't equal, because we live in a world now, especially in this country, where everybody has equal rights, or tries to have equal rights. Certainly anyone in this country, if you're over the age of 18, you can register to vote. Anyone can vote. You can apply as long as you've got the qualifications. Everybody has a free education up until the age of, to college, so the age of 17, 18, everybody has a free education. You can then choose what you decide to do after that, whether you go to work or university or an apprenticeship, or, you develop a skill or something like that. Everybody can get married. Everyone can buy a house. Everyone can get a job. Okay. So in this country, you guys, some of you won't have ever been around that, and that's why we're trying to see what it would have been like for people, and especially people your age, not being able to have the same level of education just because of the colour of your skin. Okay. So let's have a little think about this task. Now, I'm not going to go through these answers because I want you to think of these answers. Okay, so please do send them in to me, and then I can collect up some of these answers and put them forward next week on a slide. Just do some anonymous answers, what people think. It'll be really interesting to know. So do you believe that school is a privilege or a right? So do you believe that school is something that you should be grateful for, or that you demand, that you think you should have because you need an education? Or do you think it's a privilege, like you should be grateful for the fact that you have a free education, because there are some people that don't? Okay, have a think. What do you think? Number two, are there some people in the world who are prevented from going to school? Why? Are there people in the world currently who don't have the same privileges as you, as being able to have a free education, or even allowed to go to school, whether it be free or not? If you need some help with this, there's plenty of info. You can have a look on BBC, on the news websites, or you could have a look on YouTube. Number three, if you are not allowed to go to school, would you challenge this? Now, you guys have got 3 months worth of not going to school. Did you take it upon yourself to do some education whilst you were at home? Did you do some home learning? Have you participated in some looms? By some of the views that I've been getting, not all of you have. Okay, and I know some of you are listening now, and this might be the first time you've listened. Hi. or some of you might have been listening to my other lessons. Have you gone, above and beyond to do some education while you've been at home? It doesn't matter if you haven't at all. It's entirely up to you how you're feeling. But if you weren't allowed to go to school, for example, say if we turned around and said, actually, no students are going back to school in September, would you campaign and go, no, we need to get back in school. We need to be in school. Would you do that? Would you feel confident or capable of doing that? Have a think. Send me your answer. I'd be really interested to know. So pause the screen here and have a go. Right. Linda Brown, the lady of the lesson. Who is she? Or who was she? She was a schoolgirl, African American schoolgirl, who was born in 1943 in, I believe it's pronounced Topeka. We'll go Topeka, Kansas. Linda's parents wanted her to have a good education, as any parent would. Okay. Linda's father was Oliver. He was a pastor, which is kind of like an equivalent of a vicar or a priest. So he was a well-educated man, and he wanted his children to have a good education. Now, there was a very good white school 7 blocks from their home. Now, 7 blocks is not far at all. Okay, it won't take you long to walk that at all. Might be like walking around the school, or maybe just kind of the length of Harley Shoot, just the hilly bit. However, due to being African American, Linda was not allowed to go there. She was not allowed to enroll at that school. So she had to go to the local black school, the local coloured school, which was 2 miles away, which was like a good 20, 30, 40 blocks. So you're talking 2 miles is from, like, say, the bottom of Harley Shoot into town if you go along the seafront. Quite far to walk there and back every day. Okay. A lot of you I know walk great distances to go to school, so you will be able to sympathise with Linda having to do this every day. And this school wasn't a nice building, nor did it provide a good level of education. Now, that wasn't necessarily the teacher's fault. It might be because they didn't have any funding. So they didn't have any money for books or to get extra teachers. They might have had one teacher for hundreds of children. Okay, so let's go through the Year 8 booklet in a bit more detail. So let's go up here. You can see where I had it from the last time I read it. Oh, still annoying me. So I've read this bit here, so let's just go through this. So the school was for white children, and due to the segregation in American schools, Linda was not allowed to attend. Linda was forced to attend Monroe Elementary School for African American children. Monroe Elementary School had broken ceiling tiles, cracks in the floors and walls, and broken windows and no central heating, so it would have been freezing in winter. She had to walk 2 miles to school every single day, so there and back. Okay. Her father, Oliver Brown, was helped by the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, the NAACP, to bring a legal case against the Education Board. So that would be like your parents taking on the Department for Education. Okay. The DFE. On the 19th of May 1954, the court declared that segregation was against the law. So the outcome of that trial was that children had to have the same level of education. It didn't matter where they came from, what race they were, what religion they were, what their ethnic background was. Every child should have the same education. Okay. So it was declared against the law and the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, the Constitution are the laws that run and govern the USA. The Board of Education of Topeka and every other education board were forced to bring segregation to an end. Now, in theory, this should have worked, but we know back then America was a very racist and very divided country, and those southern states that we looked at last lesson with those Jim Crow laws, those Confederate states, they would still have an issue with this. And 2 years later, 6 states still did not have a single black child attend a white school. Still, after 2 years. Now, that should have been enforced almost immediately, and for 2 years, that could have sorted itself out. So there is absolutely no excuse for that to exist 2 years later. Absolutely not. Okay, there's Linda. Okay, so let's go back to this lesson. So, excuse me, getting a bit too into this now. My chest is getting bad with hay fever. So, tasks. These are going to take you a little while. Okay. Read through the Word document and answer the 3 questions. So everybody is going to do this. So let me get up the Word document. That is here. Some of this, okay, I put Brown versus Topeka because otherwise it would be Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, and it just, Topeka is 1 word, Board of Education is 3. Yeah. So it's just easier. Answer these 3 questions. So why did Mr. Oliver Brown, decide to lodge a case against the state authorities? Why did the NAACP think they could win? Why did they think that they had a good enough case to end segregation in education? Segregation in education, that is a tongue twister. And number 3, make a table of the positives and the negative outcomes of the trial. So what went well? So the positives, the good things to come from the trial. Excuse me, I haven't spoken for ages. I've got a tickling cough. And the negative outcomes of the trial. So what were some of the bad things that came out of the trial? One of them we know is that 2 years later, 6 states still didn't have equal education. So read through this document. Some of it you'll know already. We'll have gone through, and then some of it will be new. So answer those 3 questions on a bit of paper. That is your bronze task. So that's all of you are going to do that. And if you want to push yourself a little bit more, you can do silver. So this is an extension. So still using that sheet. Answer this. To what extent, so how far do you think that Brown versus the Board of Education was a success for the civil rights movement? So what good, how far did Mr. Brown taking the education board to court, how was it successful for the improvement of black people in America? And look at your positive and negative table. Which one outweighs the other? So are the positives more than the negatives, or are the negatives more than the positive? Why? Tell me why. Why you've got more on one side than on the other. And if you have finished all of that and you're feeling fancy and want to push yourself even more, I want you to do task 1 and 2 in the booklet. Now, you might have already done these because you might be ahead of the game, in which case, fabulous, well done you. But if not, I want you to do the storyboard on Linda Brown's life. And then I want you to complete, oh God, sorry, I'm going too fast. And then I want you to complete this one here. Okay, it's in your book. Now, after you've done that, pause the screen, complete your work. Oh, what am I doing here? Bishop, what are you up to? It's because I've been re-recording this. It's all going to pop. It's not working properly. After the ruling of Brown versus Topeka, again, the Board of Education of Topeka, 9 students attempted to enroll at a previously white-only school in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. So 3 years later, Arkansas is one of those middle to southern states, quite, anti-wanting to be equal back in the day. What is the key change that we see in the civil rights movement here? Why is this so significant that later on, 9 students wanted to try and enroll in a very previously solid white-only school? Have a little think for me. Okay, send me in your answers. Here is my email address, mbishop at the stleonardsacademy.org.uk. So we're kind of trying to think about how education has improved for everyone. Okay, not everybody was allowed to have the same level of education. Sorry, in America back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Okay, why? How has that been allowed, or how was it allowed? We think it's it's an outrageous thought to have these days because everybody is treated equally. But back then, coloured children, black children, African American children were not treated the same. And luckily, Linda Brown and her father and her family changed the course of children's education in America. So it's thanks to them that now every child in America is able to go to a decent school and have a decent level of education. Okay, so really have a think about that. If you want to have a Google on Linda Brown, there is some really good YouTube videos. I didn't want to play them because it sounds a bit funny when you play it on laptops. But if you want to have a look, Linda Brown on YouTube, uh, on I think there's some on BBC as well. Like really, it's such an interesting case. Okay, and please send me through any of your work. I will be really interested to read your opinions on this and any answers that you want me to check. I will speak to you all soon. Okay, bye.